And keep applauding for Marchand, LaRoux. There you go.
So when my husband and I moved to Los Angeles, we did what everybody does, which is we looked for furniture on Craigslist. And one of the first things that we found was this great set of kind of kitschy tables that looked like animal sculptures. One of them was this sculpture of like a dolphin with a big glass top. And that was kind of like normal. I had seen those before. And it came with this great little tiny bear table that was a bear on its back with its legs in the air and its nose up. And it was white, glossy lacquer, and it looked like a baby polar bear. So it was this baby polar bear table, and I loved it instantly. And I just, like, I felt like it was perfect. And like, who else would love this little thing? And so I instantly wanted to take it home, and I took it home even though it had this other big dolphin table attached to it. So we took it home, and like shortly thereafter, we ended up filing for divorce. And one of the first things that we divided up was this little table set. And I kept the baby polar bear table. And not that long ago, as I was waiting for the judgment to be passed down in our divorce, I was at home sorting through everything else in our house and waiting for like the washer dryer repairman. And like when you're sorting through all of your physical belongings after a divorce, like you're not just sorting through the physical stuff, you're sorting through all of your mental and emotional stuff too, and you're thinking like, do I like these things just because I like them? Is it habit? Like what is this? And you start to look at that polar bear table and you're like, why? And so some of these things are big and some of them are little, and you start to want to try things that you've never tried before. And so like I'm waiting there at home and I thought like, hey, what's chat roulette like? So for those of you who did not like go on the internet a lot in 2010 or read a lot of internet trend pieces in 2010, chat roulette is basically, it's a website where you go on it and you connect at random to anybody else on the internet through their webcam. And it's really sketchy because you just press next and then it spins a wheel and you connect to somebody else. So basically what it is it's what you would think it would be. But I didn't know that. I was being optimistic because I didn't know. So I gave myself a lot of rules as I went on. I thought, okay, I'm going to approach this like the scientific method. They can't see me. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. That seems fair. But like, I will see them and I will watch and observe and take notes and be very scientific about this. So I set it up, I set up my laptop in a corner of my room and in a corner of my apartment with a window facing away from me so I could like peer over the top of it and look over it. So what you could see was the bottom of my bookshelf, a cat scratcher on the floor, and the baby polar bear table. And I pressed start. And yes, chat roulette is a lot of penises, both in and out of pants. And like some elderly men and giggling teenagers. But then suddenly, and nobody was interested in my little tableau that I had set up. But eventually, it stopped on this torso in this gray t-shirt. And I could only see the bottom half of this torso's mouth. Was it a man, woman? I couldn't tell. Didn't matter. They stopped. And they typed, hello. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? And I dipped my hand into the frame because I was curious. I was like, what's going on here? And they leaned forward and they typed M-R-O-E. And I was like, does that mean more? And they put their finger in their mouth. And I was like, I guess it does. And so I was like, I took up a flip-flop that was next to my computer, and I waved it across the screen. And they started rubbing their chest, and I was like, oh, okay, all right, okay. And then they leaned forward again, and they typed MROE, and I was like, okay, how do I ramp up the action? There was another flip-flop, some cat toys. I was like, no, that's not gonna work. So I was like, okay, am I gonna do this? Is this what I'm into? And I looked, and I was like, it's the polar bear. And I leaned forward, and I put my hand on the polar bear's nose, and I wiggled my hand on the polar bear's nose. And they leaned forward, and they typed MROE in all caps. And I was like, oh my God. And they started like moving both of their hands. And I'm like, okay, something is happening. Like, what is going on? This is working? What? And then they lean forward and they type MROE, and I'm like, I do not know how to ramp this up. And I'm like, another body part? No, water. I have boundaries, I have standards here. And I'm like, okay. So I put my other hand in, and my other hand is on the polar bear's ear, and I'm just like, okay, all right. And then they kick back their chair once I put my hand on the ear, and I'm like, oh my God, I did it. And like, they turn their back away from me, and I'm like, okay, and they're wiggling their hips, and then they turn around, and with a lot of fanfare, lower their pants, and it's a man. The torso is a man. I'm like, oh, but they're working it, and I'm like, okay, and I'm doing that, and I'm like, for a moment, everything is coming together, and I'm like, oh my God, and then I look at my hands, and I'm like, wait, the panic sets in, and I'm like, oh my God, this is my life. This is my life. I am divorced, and I'm a divorced lady, and this is my life. My neighbors can see me, and this is my life. I'm fondling my side table, and this is my sex life, and I kind of love it. Thank you.
A round of applause for Marchand LaRoux. Yeah. Very nice. And